Good afternoon. My name is George Chen. I'm one of the founders of Chinatown History and Culture Association. We're based in San Francisco, but our concern is all Chinatowns everywhere, not just in San Francisco. So our projects range anywhere in Northern California or even to Nevada or Utah, Golden Spike, everywhere. But anyway, this afternoon, I'm glad that Ron have asked me to join this symposium of the surnames. And I'd like to take a mid-level flyover in history with all of you and looking at your family and looking at some of the descendants of these families that have made impacts into Chinese American heritage and histories. The four names that I like to explore is the Lees, the Qin, the Wong, and the Kong. And because we're talking about San Francisco, as most of you know, the majority of the immigrants into San Francisco originally are from Toisan. So I'm taking the perspective of the Toisanese view, and this Qin, Li, Wang, Kong are the bigger group of families from this region. As you know, all of us have four grandparents. So as students, as genealogists, research, we most of us have to search for name. So this is the four surnames we're going to talk about this afternoon. First, let's take a look at the Li. Li surname is the biggest group from Toisan and also in San Francisco. We'll take a look at where they come from and their family association and some of the descendants. So the easiest way to find out where the Lees come from, their origin, is no better place than their genealogy book, the Jukpo. What I've shown here is the actual Lee family Jukpo that was published a few years back. There's 2 volumes. But just recently, they have published 14 volumes. I think about 40 pounds of genealogy material. So anyway, based on the genealogy book, we find that the Lees actually were changed from Li, Chinese word meaning reasons, during the Song dynasty. And the person they most identify with is Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher. Lao Tzu's actual name is Lei Yi, and he is one of the Lis in the 11th generation. Lao Tzu, as most of you know, is the philosopher in ancient China. He was also the founder of Taoism. He was born in the spring and autumn period, a warm period in China, lot and rust. The Qin, the Qin originated in the Qin state, but Ken have already spent a lot of time talking about Qin, so I will not cover too much of it. But basically, the Qin was bestowed by Zhou Emperor in back in 1046 BC. One thing I do want to call your attention to is Ying Qun. The Ying Qun climbed in the Han to Tang period, and their founder was Chen Se, one of the more identifiable ancestors in the Chen history, and consequently, most of the generations identify their origin as from Ying Qun. Ying Qun there is the actual family, the Qin Family Association in San Francisco, with Ying Qin Tong, named after it. The origin of Wong. Wong means yellow, so Yellow Emperor, Wang Dai, Yellow River, Wang Ho, and the geographic location where most of them reside in the Wang County. And most of the Chinese back in the early ancient days took their surname from where they reside. So Wang Gok, the state of Wang, the Wang Yun, Wang County. And most of this information, again, come from the genealogy book as I shown here. The Kong. The Kongs actually have the same bloodline linkage as the Louis and the Fong. The first Kong was, the surname was given to a Fong by the emperor in southern Song, Song Haozhong. And the relationship also is interesting because Kong Yuping was actually the father-in-law of the emperor at the time. And this first Kong is also the father-in-law of Chen Fengtai, the Cantonese ancestor of the Qin family lineage. So the genealogy book also stated some of the migration stories of all these different families. In the late Song period, where the Mongols their army was pushing down south, most of the families in northern part of Canton move and migrate down south. And the four families basically have very similar stories. They all moved down from one time or the other, from north of Canton down south, but they all started from the Central Plain. And as the war moves on, the armies move down, they migrated either by themselves as a single family, like Chan Fong Toi and their seven sons, or they move in a group in this great migration in 1131. Law Guai, gentleman named Law, he took 36 surnames, 97 families, migrated as a group in 1131 from Namhong, Jugehong, down to Toisan. So both families, Jokpo, genealogy book, cited different stories. Very, very similar. We account of their migration. They often have slight variations. For example, the tale of the lost concubine, Wu. They are different little slightly in each family book. Also, even in the year it occurred is slightly different. But most in common, they all move from the Central Plain to Fujian to northern Canton and then the southern Canton. The Wong moved to Namhong actually in the year 1000, and then in 1050, 1070 time period, they moved down south to Toisan. And some of the Lees, some of the Wongs migrate with this large group with the Laws in 1131. And Chen Fong Toi, the Chen family of seven sons, they moved south back in 1173. The Kong, the Kong family left pretty much the same time with Chen Fong Toi's around 1170 time period. However, they first moved to Huoyuan, which is the middle east of Guangdong. Then they moved to Taishan about a generation later. The U.S. migration, if we took a look at the Taishan Overseas Chinese Journal, published in 2004, the earliest recorded overseas Chinese is in 1774. A Chen, father and son, were recorded in Southeast Asia. And in 1819, it's the earliest recorded overseas blood-related association form, family association. That's a Chou family association. The first recorded Toisan Chinese in US was 1821. The earliest recorded overseas regional association, Ningyang, is in Singapore, 1822. And most of you know, the Ningyang Association in San Francisco is the biggest group. They're the big brothers. Most of the family associations, they all are subgroup of Ningyang Association. The Lees, the Wong, Suyan, they all belong to Ningyang. Then 1848, gold rush started in America. When gold rush started, the migration to California, the local Toisanese children's song in the street were all related to Daddy went to Gamsan. Bring home money, Daddy. Bring home quickly, because the family is relying on you. Happy New Year. Daddy went to Gamsan to make money. Earn tons of gold and silver. Come home. Buy house and farmland. So that the sense of urgency of the men went to the US, went to Gamsan, the Gohu Mountain. That kind of framework and that kind of mindset. San Francisco Family Association. This is all in Chinese. The Lee Family Association, the Wong Family Association are all single name family associations. The Xihang Dokchan, which is a three-name group family association, the Chen, the Wu, and the Yu. The Suyan Association, which consists of the Louis, the Fong, and the Kong. And you remember earlier, I mentioned those three names have the same blood linkage. The same as the Chen, Wu, and Yu. So that's why they are actually family associations, but they don't have just the Chen or the Li like the Wong and the Li family association does. You look at the Chinese names, Hao, Zhong, Chan. All of this is Confucius philosophy, Confucius doctrine, Confucius traditions. And that's the mindset of the family association. And this wording, 光宗嚴祖, to qualify one's ancestor, to bring light and brightness to your client and ancestor. That's the focus, that's the duty of the sons. And So basically, the Chinese Family Association is following this kind of principles. Their purpose is to preserve the family heritage and maintain bonds and update the family trees, to preserve the linkage and the ancestral history. They help each other, the social support function and networking. They help in legal representation, education, job funding, housing, cultural activities. They would worship the ancestors in special holidays, Chinese New Year's, Qingming, the Double Nine. All of those are functions of the family association. So within 30 blocks, 30 square blocks of streets in San Francisco is Chinatown. All of the family associations are located there. I show you on the map. And there's an address. And I will have each one of their telephones on following slides so you can copy them down and understand where and how to connect with your family association. If you are a Lee, a Chen, a Wong, or a Kong. These different family associations are formed in different times. The earliest one is Ying Chun Tong, as I mentioned earlier, in 1875. The Lee Family Association was formed 1881. The Su Yan, Lu Fong, and Kong was 1887. The Wongs, 1921, and the Chen Yu Wu is the Jihao Dokchan in 1925. And I think those last two are kind of misleading because they already have the family association form, but they probably reformat themselves and register back in those earlier days of 1920s instead of in the 1800s. Here's a little look in the inside of the Lee Family Association. And you can see on the left, the altar of all the ancestors. And of course, the candle and the incense, the worshiping. And then on the right, you can see my good friend Ding Lee and David Lay, the elders of the Lee Family Association. And you can see all the pictures on the wall, the different presidents, officers of the association throughout the year. So maybe you can find your father, your uncle, or some of your grandfather and granduncles on the wall of those halls. The telephone is there. Write it down if you are Lee. The Chen Family Association show two here. Jihao Dokchan, again, is because the three names, the common blood linkage, the Chen, the Yu, and the Wu, they are based on Washington Street. We're at the end of Waverly Alley. And then on the other side is the Chen Yingqun Hall. And again, this is the name is based on the location, Yingqun. And then there's the Mo Yongfeng. Mo, of course, is the eldest son. And the big plaque you see on the left with the red background, white, the gold writing, that basically was the history of the forming of Mo Yongfeng. Most of these family associations are formed pretty much the same thing. They have similar stories. They all started out somebody's store. Uh, Most of the clansmen, the new immigrants, they would stay upstairs in one of the rooms, and then they also share the rooms with different um, family members when they were working from out of town or in the winter time. If you are a season worker, you come back to San Francisco and you spend the time in one of the rooms in somebody's store, and then pretty soon they run out of room. They don't have enough room to do the things they want to do, and they pull money together, took out a loan, and form a family association. And basically, that's the story that was written right there in 1952. Um, Actually, it was John Ju, one of our friends, one of the members of Bay Area Chinese Genealogy Group, and Gail. Uh, Gail's grandfather, Ken's grand uncle. The three of them, Chen Dukzhou, Chen Wenqing, Joseph Zhu, the three of them were dynamic trios of Wu Yongfang. They pull money together, they put the association together, and then within 12 years, they are able to raise enough money to pay the bank off completely. So they own the building free and clear. Here's the Wong Family Association on the same street on Waverly. Very well organized. Um, a remarkable association that done many good things for the clan members. Su Yun, the name basically is follow the source, uh, the source of the water hole. Trace the source. That's the Louis, the Fong, and the Kong, and they got a real ornate building right on the corner of Clay and Grand. Um, uh, Fantastic location, and this is because the ability of their leaders and the clan members are pulling together and making the family, um, making a location for all the family members. So those were the function of the family association. And later on, Beta Fong will join us. He's a member of the association. He would tell you a little bit more in real person of the real association's function and answer your questions. Let's talk about the descendants. Each family has different descendants that has big impact to Chinese American history. And of course, Bruce Lee. I don't have to say too much about Bruce because most of you know that he was born in San Francisco, uh, martial artist, filmmaker, philosopher, is following his ancestor Lao Tzu, studying philosophy. And definitely he had bigger impact, not just in Chinese um, communities, but also American history, actually worldwide history. Another one, let's like most of you probably know Hazel. Some of you probably not, but Hazel Lee is a Pico barriers. She's the first Chinese woman to fly for the U.S. military as a woman Air Force service pilot, breaking all the gender and racial barrier in the military aviation. You get off the Southwest airline in Portland, right through the terminal, you see her face staring right at you. You find her on the halls of but the Consolidated Bavarian Association in Portland, uh, but her picture is not in the Lee Family Association in Portland. I checked it out with Neil the president of Portland Family Association. Um, so as famous and as well known as what Hazel had done and contribute to American and Chinese women history, she's able to make it wide on many places, but unfortunately, it's not her picture is not hanging in the Lee Family Association in Portland. The Chins, Chen Yihei, another famous Chin, born in Toisan, grew up in Toisan, but came to the US in 1860. He made a name for himself. He made a lot of money. He was a well successful businessman and helped form the Seattle Chinatown in the state of Washington. Then he returned to China, 1904, and he founded a railroad company. The first railroad company fully funded strictly by the Chinese, funded, managed, constructed totally by Chinese. And by the way, he is the descendant of the second son of Tan Fong Toy. So this is the bloodline of Tan Fong Toy. The next one that we want to talk about is Arthur Chen. Arthur Chen is also a descendant of Tan Fong Toy. He's the third son, Yin. Arthur is born in Portland, Chinese father, Persian mother, flew for the Chinese Air Force, war hero, World War II, first American ace, predated any U.S. Before they get into the war. And he was badly burned. He retired, and he worked for the Portland U.S. Postal Service. And because of his contribution to history, and they actually named a post office after him, one in Aloha in Oregon. And this is the second post office that the descendant of Yin has. The other one is Gordon Chen in San Jose. If you're ever in that area, check it out. The Wongs. I'd like to pay attention to Anna May Wong. She's a cultural icon. She has her own style. Her talent really make her an icon of her time. Well recognized, but she also have her struggles. Racism, Hollywood back in those days. But then in 2022, she was awarded. Her face was appear on the quarter, the U.S. quarters. So her coin, you can find it maybe right in your pocketbook. The other Wong that had big history is Wong Ting Fuk. He was born in China, came to the U.S., learned English really quickly, and he was able to speak so well. He became a public speaker, advocate of civil rights, and he was able to talk to Americans audience directly. Fighting for the stereotyping, the Chinese stereotyping, and as a journalist, he really had make a quite an impact and one of the early Asian American civil rights advocates. The Fong, I call your attention to Senator Fong. Senator Fong was born in Hawaii, got a law degree in Harvard, and was the first Asian American U.S. senator. He served State Hawaii, and he was actually the first Asian American ever ran for the U.S. president. So, as you see, there are so many Asian American descendants that have made such an impact in the U.S. history, in the Chinese community, in the U.S. War, uh, Hollywood. We all see their contribution. So lots of information. I hope it's not overloading. In the least, we talk about from Lao Tzu to Bruce Lee. We're talking about men fighting hand-to-hand combat on horseback in the Song and Mongol warfare, to women flying fighter aircraft, from Chen Fong to Arthur Chen. You see the poor boys from a village in Toisan and coming over to the U.S., and the descendant is the war hero or the U.S. Post Office dedicated to their name. Wong, Anime Wong, being a woman, is not able to have her name listed in any of her genealogy book, but you see her face right in the U.S. corner. The Kong, being a the Kong actually again is interesting because if you read Chinese, you will see Senator Fong is actually the real name is Kong Yao. He's actually a Kong, and I believe one of the reasons is either his father or his grandfather probably was a paper son. They probably bought the Fong paper. So he came over as a Fong, but his actual birth name is a Kong. And so a descendant of a son or a grandson of a man with a fortified ID become a lawmakers on the Hill of Washington, D.C., and even knocking on the door of the land's greatest office, highest office in the White House. So what kind of conclusion can we make out of this history stories? Well, I'll let you make your own conclusion. Write your own genealogy book. Teach your offspring, teach your children how to honor and devote their family value. What should they devote their loyalty to? You should write them. Are you the chosen one? We read in some of the genealogy books that they are saying every 3 generations we should review and rewrite our genealogy book. They're very clever, our ancestors. They want you, their descendants, to really review and know their families, hopefully from not farther than 3 generations. So our ancestors came to this gold mountain to dig for gold. They come down the mountain and they dust their gold dust off from the clothing, from the trousers, from the blue jeans, and they deposit them right into the hall of the associations in Chinatown, because that's their playground, the family association and the regional association. So it's up to us to really mind them now. Most of the family association will welcome you. Some of them have English speaking directors, members. In Portland, Neil Lee is the president, and he's the 2nd generation. And he tells me that all their meetings are conducted in English. So don't be afraid. You're not too far away. We do, and we understand how to open the doors, and we have the relationship to open many of the doors in the San Francisco Family Association and Regional Association, the Ning Yang, the Ji Hao, the Six Company. We can get in if you have the interest and we have the energy. We would like to invite you to visit them. Okay, work with us. We work together, and we could open these doors, and we could make the connection. Thank you very much. Okay, so Beta wanted to say something about your association.
Okay, all right. Should we use the mic here? Okay.
Yeah, use the mic.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. George, thanks for those good talks we had about family associations. Actually, I was born here in San Francisco back in 1954 at Stanford Hospital, just over there. And great grandpa came in 1905. He was a cook. He was on a contract to be a cook for a family in Pacific Heights. And so over the recent years, since I retired 7 years ago, I've been looking into our family history and had a chance to go to these workshops here, as well as up in Henry Tom's workshops in Nevada. And my friend Frank and Jeannie brought me and Gail and others here. The Family Association is interesting. When I was 6 or 7, I moved in with my grandparents. They helped raise me and my 2 sisters. And my grandpa was quiet, but he could write, he could read. So he was a treasurer for the Soyin Family Association. And we would go up there on Sundays with him. And it's a big, tall building, 4 stories. And it had like 30 residential units and a bunch of commercial units right on Chinatown on Grand Avenue. And what we would go up there is they would have like mahjong for the ladies upstairs. They would have the general meetings. I dropped my grandpa off when I became driving age and would pick him up after. We would go to the Chinese New Year banquets, and it would be sponsored by the Soyin Benevolent Association, which is Louis, Kwong's, and Fong's. And like some of the history says in the book, like I've picked up the Kwong Jokbo just last November. I went back for the tri-annual conference. It's every 3 years. The Louis, Kwong's, and Fong's from all the chapters across the world. Seattle, New York, LA, Chicago, Hong Kong, Malaysia were all showing up at this workshop. So it was a pretty cool experience. And me being American born, the only reason I got in the door is because grandparents helped raise me. And so I got exposed to that culture and Chinese New Year banquets, and then the Chinese Christmas celebration. They would have a big gifts. Kids could go get free gifts. But we didn't realize that our grandparents are paying for these, they buy the tickets, right? So, and then you can apply for scholarships for your kids to go to college, all these pretty cool benefits. Later on, after my 3 kids got scholarships to help go to college, I decided to give back and I joined the Family Association board.
Camera
here's the camera.
For the Zoom audience.
So I joined the Family Association board and tried to represent being an ABC or American born Chinese. It's a very different perspective, but appreciating growing up by my grandparents raising me, understood the value of the culture, the language, and all the things that Family Association gave back to the community to support it during some of its tough years. And what I've learned from my friend Frank over here is that Chinese in America have had to struggle a lot of discrimination all over since first coming. And it's the family associations that have propped up the men that came over that couldn't bring their wives and kids. The men that were single all their lives, but their wives and kids were stuck in China. And then also getting a job, housing, borrowing money, banking, settling disputes, all the family associations helped in so many ways. And, you know, when I was a little kid, I didn't know any better, but Grandpa lived upstairs. We lived upstairs on California Divisadero, and he was running a laundromat. But before that, he was just over here on Waverly Alley running a shoe store back in 1956, 57, 58. And my Auntie Lil tells me, yeah, the old men would come along, bring food, just hang out at my dad's store, and they would just, a lot of interaction. It was part of community. It was family. There was no other family that they could have except when you had people that opened up their shops to do that. So, and later on, I learned that our other family association, the Ying Family Association, which is a regional one, had bought that building a while back. And so my grandpa could actually turn it into his own business from grocery store at a lower rental rate. And we rented upstairs at a lower rental rate than market value out there at the time. So the association was helping lots of families like that prop themselves up so that we could go to college, get a college education, and become successful in what we're doing. And what I learned from Frank over the last few years, we got to know each other, is that the challenge of hate violence in our society since the eruption in the 2020s is that we have to figure out how to have a stronger voice for our own communities and build alliances with all our other diverse cities. So on the second side is we talk about, we came to Gumsan for the gold. And literally, the Chins up in Orville made their wealth from gold. My dad, he ended up working for Trader Vic's most of his life, helping open up Trader Vic's in Denver, Chicago, New York, LA, and Havana, Cuba. He thought that was his pot of gold. It didn't actually result in that, but he did open up his own restaurant later in Denver. He came back to San Francisco, did some more restaurants. And even though he didn't have a nice house, didn't drive a Cadillac, I said, Dad, you have 3 good kids that came out okay, and we get to choose what we wanted to do with our lives. I think that's the gold mountain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing, George asked me to invite any of you who'd like to come to visit our family association, the Louis Kongs and Fongs. You get to see a picture of my grandpa as he sat there as a treasurer and one-time president in 1963. And I'm just assistant English secretary. I'm not any high ranking. I try to work on my Cantonese. I was taking Cantonese at City College last year. It was 10C and 10D. And so anyway, I'll leave my number with on the chat with Ron. Feel free to get a hold of me. All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Well, maybe I'll ask a question of you. You know, my grandfather, when he came, he went to the Bing Hong Kong, and the associations at that time had a real reason to help the immigrants. So my question to either of you gentlemen is that I'm now 3rd generation Chinese American. How are associations relevant to me? Because I've never been to an association. Would either of you guys like to address?
That's actually Ron, excellent question. Why am I going down to these meetings Saturdays once a month? And I'm always asking, what are we voting for and who are we voting for? You know, what are we voting on? Which restaurant? And it's like, and then I brought my son to a dinner for the Chinese New Year banquet this year. And he sat there and says, Dad, we have to wait for this, all these speeches. The food takes over an hour and a half of waiting. This is the last time I'm gonna come to any of these events. And it's like, I heard that story over and over from elders, past presidents. And they've said what you just said, asked the question, how relevant is it today? And I ponder, and George and I, we probably all need to sit down and have some lunch about it. But in some ways, I think one idea is we help with scholarships, but can we help with other things at the next level to promote leadership development, perhaps? And can we also add opportunities for women and young ladies to join members and become directors. Right now, the Soyun has no women on our board.
We visit the Lee Family Association in Portland with Frank and Jeannie a few weeks ago. Neil Lee is the president of the Lee Family Association in Portland. And he told me that that particular association is probably one of the first associations that conduct their meetings in English. Okay. The CCBA, the Consolidated Pavilion Association in Portland, is all running by the second generation Chinese. Okay. So don't think that you cannot be in there or have any relationship, because most of the family association, all the other associations are run by people from Hong Kong, people from China, or something. We all belong to the associations one way or the other. Okay. Your granduncle, your grandfather, your cousin, they probably ran some of those associations for a long time. You go up there, you probably say, I know that guy. Pretty much like when you go back to your home village, ancestor village, and went to your ancestor home, you find your picture on the wall, right? Your graduation picture is hanging there. Well, it's the other way around. Your grandfather's picture is hanging in there. So don't abandon them, is what I'm saying. David Lay, Ding, they welcome you in the Lee Association. It's just one phone call away. Okay, Chen Family Association, we have to work on a little bit. But most of them do welcome the second, third, fourth, fifth generations. There's like you see, we have some periodic. Su Ying Tong has some quarterly magazine, the one that you bought
Yeah, it's annually.
annually.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean they have publications. They also have 2-3 year conference internationally, right? In Seattle, in Queens, in Toisan, or wherever. Okay, they are part of us. Yeah.
One moment.
So
I don't walk as fast as I used to.
So I would comment and a question. So my father's last name is Go, and he goes, I think went to the Kong Chao Benevolent Association, because I think that handled Sunway or Shinwei. That's one thing.
Ling Yao. Mhm.
But secondly, as I'm looking at this slide, Su Yin Benevolent Association, I just realized that Louis is my grandmother's maiden name. Of course, she never made it to the US. She lived and died in China. But it made me wonder a couple things. One, my grandmother was a Louis, so I wonder how my family's related somehow, village-wise or whatever.
Right.
And secondly, the second question is, do the benevolent associations collaborate on anything? And thirdly, are you welcoming women into your leadership circles?
Yeah.
Well, specifically, when it says Louis Gong Fong means, the history is kind of mixed on some of the history, but,
Under the camera.
oh yeah, the camera. But what George is saying is true, is historically there was this king and there was this big war going on, and there was a Kwong and a Louis and a Fong, and he basically said, okay, we're gonna divide up these territories between these 3 surnames. And one of them, Kwong, was kind of made up on the spot because that was the name of this general. So, but you're correct. Louis is, the board is, let's say it's made up of 60 board members, 20 are Louis, 20 are Kwong, and 20 are Fong. And then, so they have to elect among each other. So they have like subgroup. And then, even then, within that subgroup, there's a Yindung association. When I first joined the board, I was part of the Yindung, and they only met every other month. And we were responsible for a lot smaller responsibilities, but it was kind of warm us up to learning how to operate
The
as a
junior
board.
league.
Yeah, junior league. But yeah, no, there aren't no women on any of the three groups, but there's a separate Kong association, I believe, on Waverly. There's one for Louis as well, right? And I think you pointed that out, and I think there's one for Kong too. So that's just by surname. Of course, there's the regional ones from the village that you might have grown up with, and there might be multiple surnames. Which is,
Yeah.
yeah, there's Jeannie.
Question?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment to make, and you asked why. We've had this discussion. You don't even know where your association is, and that's a problem. I did grow up in an association. We went all the time. Am I active now? No, but there's a reason. Not good, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna be back there, trying to make changes in the future. But one thing I have noticed, and I heard this recently from a cousin who happens to be on my father's side, that first of all, there are far fewer family banquets. If you look at how many banquets have you been to, I mean, we used to go to them all the time as kids. So you would see your family members, especially if you're in an association that's active, and our association was active.
Yeah.
Today, nobody's giving banquets because none of us are willing to pay for it. And it's our age group that gave those banquets when we were kids. And today, we're at their age group and we're not giving banquets, so we don't know who our cousins are. And the only way you're gonna know your cousins is if you stay with your association. Even if you don't care about the association, you should at least care about your family. That's what
Well, actually, our ancestors are very clever. If you remember some of those things that we said, your ancestor Mo wrote on the ancestor book that every 3 generations you should renew the family book. Every 3 generations you should know all your cousins.
Right, yeah, and yeah, for me, I'm a retired organizer and, I have good friends who are very active in the family associations. One of my good friend, a member of the Yi Family Association, he says to me that the new immigrants coming in have more money, bringing in more money into the country than what the family association has. Jeannie and I recently were assisting the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association scanning their archives dating back to Sun Yat-sen. And, the leader, Ding Li, told us recently that, the 6 companies itself, they're running out of cash. And that family associations today don't have the money that they used to have, that they're willing to lend them the money instead of donating or paying dues to support the Chinese 6 companies. So what you're witnessing today is quite different. The Chinese 6 companies today is quite different from yesteryear. And when you go back in time, when American laws did not apply to the Chinese, that Chinese 6 companies had a function here in America. Where else can you get a loan? Where else can you get a line of credit? When you see the anti-Chinese sentiment in the United States today, and we're in the process of locking out the Chinese or deporting Chinese who overstayed their visas, that we were talking to one of Jeannie's cousins maybe a couple of months ago, and he mentioned that he has a cousin in Panama City waiting to come to the United States. But in my thinking, I'm taking a fat chance that the cousin's going to make it here on U.S. soil. Rather, when I see what's going on in Mexico, Central America, South America, as our President-elect Trump locks out the Chinese, guess where the Chinese is going to relocate? Now, the family associations itself has a useful function in terms of family resettlement. So when you take a look at the Chinese diaspora and they're moving throughout the world, then I think there is a function there for families to give them that line of credit or to give them that loan. So then, even though for ABCs, what we're trying to do now is to get them to reunify with their ancestral homeland. So they can learn more about our history and then also to guard against what's going on today. But because we are not connected, or the connection is not as strong, then you can see the hate violence that's starting to emanate.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, I think another comment I'd add to what Frank is speaking of, you know, with COVID in Chinatown, San Francisco, and I think Oakland as well, we're still recovering from the shutdown. And a lot of those shops had to close. There was not enough money coming in. And so as they start to open one by one, but at the same time, you know, the large restaurant, the slow disappearance of large restaurants for banquets, also physically, there aren't enough places because So Yun would use 3 restaurants to hold their banquets Chinese 2 years back and have about 1,500 people at the banquets in old days. Yeah, question.
Yeah, I have a question regarding how is the association, what resources those associations have for genealogy work, and how has it helped people do genealogy work? Do people come in, says, here's my, who, can you trace my common ancestors, things like that? I can't read Chinese.
I
I
don't.
help on that one. Good question, Bruce. The interesting thing about, you're talking about the Jaku or the Jopo. I have the one for the Gong family, and surprisingly, one of our chapter presidents down in Southern California actually digitized the whole thing. And by digitizing, he came back and asked people, okay, do you want to add people? And he's adding anybody that follows that name, male, female, he doesn't care. He's just putting the names in. Now that book is only going to stay here in the USA, not going to go anywhere else. But that's the good thing about it. At least we can follow it through in Chinese. And he can help us, and that's the advantage. The other advantage I was going to mention that isn't always known is that I found out that my grandfather, who passed away when he was like 25 years old, over 100 years ago, I actually found that name on a record at our family association.
Nice.
So some records are available and some are not, but
Right.
you'll never find out unless you go over there.
That's true, that's true.
Can you find my common answer? You go in there and say, here's my Yapu. Can you find my common answers? I can't read Chinese.
The association has to be able to find out who you're. The association, if you get to the right people, and not everybody's right, but there are good people there, they'll help you figure out, okay, who's your relative, and they go back to your relative, and they can identify that person as part of the association, then yes, they can help.
And one other thing I want to say is that things are very dynamic. When you have AI, Google Translate, and all that, there's only a few more years before you'll be able to get that translation. And that there's an upcoming conference that Henry Tom is sponsoring in January to teach people how to scan. Jeannie's going to be doing some teaching people how to scan their family archives. And that Ron's going to be doing his thing. And then Henry is going to take us on a journey on learning how to use OCR to pick up that data that what you're wanting to do. So then with ethnic studies throughout the country, critical race theory in the colleges, that for the children, grandchildren, if they have an interest, there'll be opportunity for them to do the work for you.
We're just gonna take a couple from the Zoom.
Ron, thanks.
I've got two questions from Zoom. One is, how do I find out if my family has a family organization? And if so, who to contact?
Yeah, it's, there's a lot of record, but they're not, that easily traceable. I think it's like peeling any onions. First of all, you have to find out, your grandparents, their grandfather's name, which village they come from. But that is a lot easier than we can, because as we heard earlier, there are so many different branches within each family surname. The Lees have 14 different associations just in San Francisco, Chinatown. So if you're from one village of Toisan, might not be the right one if you just go to any Lee association. So the actual Chinese name, the actual village where they come from, with that, we could probably ask the family association to see if that's one of the members might belong in that, possible belong in that group. So that's just like you're tracing your ancestors' tombstone, same thing. Find the right information, pass it on. We can use that as a starting point. But without that, and you just say, I'm a Lee, can you tell me which association? There's no way, it went impossible.
Okay, here's another question, George. I didn't catch the name of the representative from Suyun.
Okay.
I would like to contact.
Okay, my name is Bayard Fong, F-O-N-G, Bayard spelled B-A-Y-A-R-D. And my email address is bayardpfong@gmail, BAYARDPFONG@gmail.
I'm sorry, here it's slower.
Yeah,
B-A-Y.
ARD P
D.
for Peter, and then Fong, F-O-N-G, no periods, @gmail. And my contact number is 415 672 9015.
15.
Yeah,
Magic.
got it.
Okay.
Okay, we have time for just two quick questions. And we just happen to have three raised hands. So three quick questions.
It wasn't a question, I was gonna make a suggestion to Bayard and to George.
Yes.
Possibly organizing a tour of the family associations. And, maybe do a meet and greet or lunch or something like that afterwards. But a quick visit to that. And one of the quick thing I was gonna add, the reason why Lieutenant Arthur Chin is on a postage stamp was not because he worked for a post office. After he recovered from the injuries that he sustained flying for the Chinese National Air Force
Yes.
prior to World War II, he was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army Air Force and recommissioned to and trained to fly a P-51 fighter plane and rejoined the 14th Air Force just toward the end of the war.
Right. I'm sorry, I just passed through the summary. Not a detail.
So this actually is a good time. If we were to create a field trip, like we did to Angel Island before, or Nara before, how many people would be interested in going into a family association? Well, at least over half. That's good. Okay, make a note. I sent out the evaluation forms, so put that down as one of the potential field trips.
Yep.
So I was looking for my association, which is the Yifeng Toy Association. Yifeng Toy Association. So I was looking for. I wanted to go visit, but one of my friends goes, "Do you have a brother or a male member that would want to go in there with you?" And I said, I feel kind of upset because I'm like, my grandfather belonged to the association, my uncle was an officer in the association, and I feel afraid to go because I don't think I would be, well, first of all, I don't speak Toisan very well. I mean, I could kind of make it, but I can't speak to anyone who with enough accent to get me through.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that out there because I want to be able to go and visit.
David Lay.
Who is this?
David Lay.
Oh,
He will get you into any Lee association that you want.
oh, he actually looks kind of familiar to me.
That's okay.
Yeah.
He's the speaker here.
Yeah.
He's
Get the information to Ron. When we put something together, you're welcome to come join us.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Evelyn, last question.
More of a comment. I happen to belong to a much smaller community. I'm a Sito. I'm
Uh-huh.
not a Chin, I'm not a Chan, I'm not a Wong or a Lee. And,
Sito.
yeah, Sito. And so when I went to our local Sito association with some friends, I found them to be sort of, I don't know, I don't find them helpful in terms of, I think they're more of a social organization, I think from years past, and they may have helped, new immigrants when they first came in, but today I find them dwindling in small numbers. And on my own association down in Los Angeles, all the old timers are dying off. My mother's probably the last one standing, and she feels really sad about it. And the few young people that are still involved, they're into the scholarship part of it, which is great for their kids. But, for me personally, I'm beyond that. So, and I keep asking whether they will help with doing genealogy, and I don't feel they are interested. And so for my particular interests, the Suho organizations are not very helpful. So, all the rest of you guys are lucky. I know George and I have talked about this. I don't know how to say this in a sweet way because I can't, okay? If you are interested in an organization of any kind, and especially if they're nonprofit, you need to make a donation. If you're interested in joining a family association, do not think you could just walk in, introduce yourself, and get welcome arms. If you don't donate, there's no reason for them to welcome you. But I do think, unfortunately, I think money does speak, and because the associations are fading, they need money. I don't know of any association that's turning away money, and that's the one thing I find is helpful.
I
Maybe
think.
two of you make some concluding remarks now.
I will just say that your idea about hosting a meeting with the Family Association representative with this group to bring up that connection, so I like that idea.
Yes.
I think actually, many of the organized association in San Francisco has more money than for their own good. Why did I say that? Because a lot of the people who care is no longer there because they pass away or whatever. So you got people coming over and taking over the association is only looking at one thing. The original intent to help the community, to help your clan members, to help your relatives is no longer that relevant anymore from that situation. But to be quite honest, I think every organization, every institution, every instrument has its purpose for a particular time. How the future of the association is really up to all of us, not just the people there, all of us. I just mentioned earlier, the CBBA of Portland, or second generation, they speak English. You try to speak Chinese with them? Sorry. They conduct everything in English. Could that happen in San Francisco? Maybe, sooner or later. You know, all of the association in San Francisco today has been here, some of them over 150 years. Do you think they're all going to be around another 150? Some of them will not. Okay, so just like genealogy study, research, you make your own stories. What do you want to do with the genealogy? Don't like Kennedy said, you know, don't ask what I do for you. What do you do for them? You know, it's up to all of us. You know, we make a difference. You know, they need people to help digitize. They need people to help get on the web, on social media. Maybe that's your ticket in. I don't know. You know, everybody have their own key. You know, I have a key to the Lee Association because I know these two gentlemen. I can go in there anytime. If you want to use my key, you're welcome. We can go in there, you know, but like Jeannie say, you know, don't go in there and say, I'm gonna take over. No. But it's work together, because after all, they are your relatives.
George, can I ask a quick question? This is from Zoom. It's, are the family associations generally 501c3s?
No, I don't think so.
They are not.
No, I don't think so.
The So Yun Family Association is a 501c3. Yeah.
Okay, so some are and some aren't.
Right.
Okay, that's even
Right,
better.
right.
Okay, and then,
Most of them are.
okay, most of them are?
Most of them are.
All right, and then lastly, can, this individual is looking to figure out what family association she belongs to. Can she just contact you so you can
Yeah,
give her?
send us the email through the web. You
Okay,
know, all of them will help. All of us will jump in to help.
perfect, thank you.